the biggest surprise to me was the Texans. The Colts just dominated them, man. They dominated them. And that Colts team looks good. I mean, right now, when you look at it across the board, the Saints didn't look good down the stretch. The Rams faded down the stretch. The Chiefs were 3-3 in their last 6 games. They faded down the stretch. And not a lot of people are talking New England. I think a lot of people are, because of the season that they have had, they're expecting they're going to lose to LA. The Chargers are going to beat them. I think Belichick and Brady are just sitting back thinking, let people believe what they want. This is the playoffs. That's half the battle, is getting here. They've been through this. They know what it takes to win these type of games. But that to me was a surprise. I did have the Colts beating the Texans, but I didn't think it was going to be like that. And Andrew Luck looked surgical. He looked surgical in that game. He looked surgical. And that would, I would love to see 2 different teams in the Super Bowl. I would love to see 2 teams there that either haven't been in a while or, have got guys that have never been there. That's what I want to see. So obviously a lot of the talk after yesterday's game was Parkey's missed field goal for the Bears. The Eagles win 16-15. They advance to the next round to play the Rams, to play the Saints. Eagles play the Saints, Cowboys play the Rams. This is a winnable game for the Eagles, even though Drew Brees and the Saints don't lose at home in the playoffs. And a lot of people think, going back to last season, a lot of people think that if the Vikings didn't have that miracle in the Superdome, not in the Superdome, but on their turf in Minnesota against New Orleans last season, that if they didn't have that miracle throw to Stephon Diggs to win the game, that the Saints would have beat the Eagles in the next round. Well, that's all talk. Well, now we're going to find out. Because now we get to see Saints versus Eagles. But this Eagles-Bears game, this was a defensive game. But again, we get to the fact of, when it gets to playoff time, you have to be capable of having a team that has a good defense, has a running game, and has a passing game. For Chicago, what's been their downfall all season? The offense. 21st in passing, 21st in yards per game. Defense, they were number 1. But that offense struggled all season. And it showed in that game against Philly. They left points on the field. Now, granted, that one throw, I can't remember if it was to Miller or to who it was, but the one throw that Trubisky went downfield and the refs ruled was incomplete, but it looked like he caught it and then fumbled it, but because nobody recovered it, they acted like the play never happened. I didn't understand that at all. In my opinion, it was a clear catch and then fumble. And yes, nobody recovered the ball, but even though nobody recovered the football, that should be Bears ball at the 5-yard line. And that may have changed that whole game. I don't agree with that call at all. Now, did that call cost the Bears the game? No. Did Parkey's missed field goal, that's now being called a blocked field goal, did that cost them the game? Well, yes, they lost the game because they didn't make it, but that didn't cost them the game. They had 3-4 opportunities in the red zone where they could have easily had a 2-touchdown lead over Philly. They left too many points on the board. That defense was a big reason they were 12-4. Like I just said, the stat that I just gave you. They were 21st in total offense this season. 21st. They were first in offense. 21st in total, first in defense, 21st in total offense. And that showed in that game last night against Philly. They left too many points on the board. You can't do that in the playoffs, especially against a Super Bowl caliber team like Philly. Now, I don't think that I think the magic is going to end in New Orleans. I just don't think that this season they're built the way that they need to be built to beat New Orleans in New Orleans. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a football game, but I don't think they're going to beat New Orleans in New Orleans. Drew Brees is on a mission this season. That whole team's on a mission. Ever since they lost to Minnesota last season on that crazy catch by Diggs, they've been on a mission. But Philly has a real question here. Now, granted, Foles didn't play the greatest. He threw 2 picks, but he made the throws when it counted. 4th and goal, game on the line. He's calm, cool, and collective, throws a perfect pass to Golden Tate. They take the lead. And that's another thing to think about. You got that great defense. It's 4th and goal. Golden Tate's in there. You got to tell your guys, you got to put your best guy on him. Because chances are, when that type of play happens and a guy comes in that really hasn't been in the game that much, there's a good chance that that ball is going to go to him. And on 4th and goal, teams usually run their best 2-point conversion play. Whatever their best 2-point conversion play is, that's what they're going to run on 4th and goal, and that's what Philly ran. And Chicago just couldn't stop it. They were close, but not close enough. And Doug Peterson said after the game, he said, man, I think that Nick Foles sometimes doesn't have a pulse. Because he was way too calm on that 4th and goal. And look, like it or not, this Eagles offense runs better when Foles is in control of it. Think about where they were. Throughout most of this season, everybody was saying, what is wrong with Philly? They can't do this, they can't do that. They were in jeopardy. After week 10, they were in jeopardy of serious jeopardy of missing the playoffs. Wentz gets hurt, Foles comes in and ushers them into the playoffs. And Philly's got a real dilemma here. Here you have Carson Wentz, a quarterback you drafted in the first round, a quarterback you stamped as your franchise guy. That's been hurt 3 times now, twice missing the season, or most of the season. And here's your backup guy, Nick Foles, who won you the Super Bowl last season and now has the opportunity of taking you to the next and has gotten you to the playoffs. Because look, that offense when Wentz, and I'm not knocking Wentz here, but like it or not, the Philly offense just runs better with Foles in there. We saw it last season, we've seen it this season. Now, let's be realistic here. The Eagles are not going to trade Wentz and sign Foles to some multi-million-dollar deal. That's not going to happen. When you look at long-run measurables, Wentz is your guy. But the ownership's got to think here. What if this does happen? What if Foles leads you to back-to-back Super Bowls? Let's just say that does happen. What do? Do you stick with Wentz, or do you say, you know what? Let's ride this. Let's ride this, and let's see what we can get for Wentz, and let's ride it out. Because you got to think that there's some people in that front office that are saying, this is the second time he's gotten seriously injured and missed multiple games. And while he was in there this season, not last season, but while he was in there this season, we weren't doing much. And then Foles takes over, gets us into the playoffs, gets us past the Bears, throws a beautiful pass on 4th and goal to get them in the end zone and take the lead in Chicago. There's not many guys that could have done what he did in that game. There's not many guys that could have done what he did last season. There's not many guys that could have done what he did this season. This goes back to, you got to have the right system and the right guys at the right time. That's what Philly had with Foles last season. That's what they have right now. They know what he does best, and they do it and play it right. And they're going to figure out that with Wentz, but something that Wentz has to learn. He's got to protect his body. You're no good to your team and your franchise if you keep getting hurt. And that's why I said, now, realistically, the chances of Philly keeping Foles and getting rid of Wentz is very low. Like I said, the only thing that could happen that I believe that ownership could really consider that is if somehow Foles leads them to another Super Bowl. If he leads them to another Super Bowl, then you've got serious discussion in that front office of, do we need to move off of Wentz? But, like I said, there's got to be some people in that front office that are saying, hey guys, look here, Wentz has gotten seriously injured twice now. We weren't doing, now granted, he would have been MVP last season if he didn't get hurt. There's no questions about it. He would have gotten league MVP if he didn't get hurt. But then you come to this season. They were struggling with him in there. They weren't moving the ball. They were barely scoring 14 points a game. He gets injured. It's not looking good. They're currently outside of a playoff spot. Foles takes over, leads them to a 9-win season, and they get in the playoffs. And then he wins the first game in Chicago with an unbelievable 4th and goal pass. Now, either way, Foles is going to get a job somewhere and get paid. Whether that's Jacksonville, think of teams that need quarterbacks. Jacksonville, I don't know, I guess you could throw, I'm trying to think of teams off my head right now. Denver. He's going to get paid. He's going to get a starting job somewhere. But if somehow he does pull this out and gets Philly back-to-back Super Bowls, there's going to be real consideration in that office of, maybe we need to pay Foles and see what we can get for Wentz. Now, who knows? Yes, Wentz looks like a franchise guy. He does. But like I just said, the injuries don't help anybody. It doesn't help Philly. It doesn't help Wentz. And any quarterback, any player will tell you, a young quarterback that has a couple of injuries early, it's not good. It's not good for the longevity of their career. It's not good for their play. Because some young quarterbacks, after they get hurt a couple of times, their play style changes. Because they keep thinking about, I'm going to get hurt. Now for Wentz, he's just got to learn how to take care of his body. Because he's got the line. He's got the guys to protect him. He's got to keep himself safe. And Foles is showing that. Foles is not mobile. You know what I mean? So he has to depend on his arm. Wentz, he's got the legs, but he needs to learn that his best position, and we saw that last season when he was healthy. All of his great plays were from the pocket. That's what he needs to do. But this, on the other side, could work out bad for Philly. Because let's say they move off of Foles. Let's say he's the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. He gets paid and he's taking that franchise to the playoffs and they're winning the division, and let's say Wentz gets hurt again, or let's say they have a struggling season with them and barely finish